We have our NBA totals here for Wednesday. Yesterday we were 4-2 in our totals, so we're trying to get back on track with that. Overall, we just, we're still down a little bit. But we're starting to make some ground yesterday in the totals at least. That puts us at 14-16 on the year, so almost back to 500. Considering how terrible last week was, that's good for totals. Overall, not that great. When you look at my other video, excuse me. But yesterday we should have gone 5-1. We probably should have gone 6-0. Utah and shot out of their minds, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. But the Sacramento-Miami game went into overtime, unfortunately. So we had the right call, but overtime happens. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. So 4-2 on our totals, 4-3 overall. Of course, we didn't hit our side because we haven't hit those since, I don't know, maybe since last year. At least how it feels. That's how it feels like. But we're going to go ahead and break down the total still. This has been a really good segment, and we're going to continue to go ahead and, make some good assessments and make some good plays. So let's go ahead and let's start breaking this down. First, we got Toronto and Washington under the 203 at Heritage Sports. It's going to where I'm going to make my play. We got right now these two teams. You got Toronto playing defense and Washington is not. I mean, look at the contrast here. You got Toronto allowing 96 points per game. That ranks 6th. You have Washington allowing 113 points per game. That ranks 28th in the league. As well, Washington is last in opponent effective field goal percentage, allowing 54.8%. Toronto is one of the better teams in the league in that category, allowing just 46.5%, overall ineffective field goal percentage. But what really gets me on this one is, it's an interesting line it's 203 set by odds makers. The last 4 times they've met, 166, 185, 185, and 195. And I can see why odds makers would set it so high. As Washington, they're averaging 90 attempts per game. That's one of the higher ones in the NBA. But then you look at Toronto, they rank 23rd, and Washington ranks 21st in offensive shooting efficiency. So they're not tremendous offenses. I know Scott Brooks wants to get Washington go kind of fast, like when he did with OKC. But still, I like for this game to stay under that 203. That just seems like it's too much when Toronto is such a good defensive team, and Washington can definitely play better defense. So look for the guards to play some good perimeter defense in this one. We got Kyle Lowry and DeRozan taking on Wall and Beal. So hopefully these teams will play a little better defense. I think they will. And so I'm going to go under the 203 in that matchup. Next up, we got the Los Angeles Lakers, Atlanta Hawks. I'm going to go under the 208. We got the Lakers are coming off a back-to-back. They're 11th right now in opponent attempts per game. But Atlanta is what gets me on this one. I like under the 208 because Atlanta, they're number 1 right now in the league. They've allowed 88.7 points per game. They're a really good defense. I think they're going to give Los Angeles a lot of trouble. As well, Atlanta, they're only averaging 84 attempts per game. That ranks them 23rd in the league. The real contrast, though, is from beyond the arc, where the Lakers are averaging 30 shots from distance per game. And that's one of the highest in the NBA, but Atlanta allows just 20. Per game so far this season. And they've been traditionally, with Budenholzer, really good about defense overall and the perimeter. So I think Atlanta's going to be able to, put the clamps down on the Lakers. Want to get more in depth about it. Let's look at it with Luke Walton, as he was a coach for Golden State, who's brought in, kind of the same scheme here with the Lakers. Golden State and Atlanta last year, they went to 194 and 214 finals, but the 214 final was overtime. So a little extra digging there tells us that this game, with the way the schemes are going to work out, unless there's some amazing shooting like Utah did yesterday. And again, I'll talk about that in a second. I see this game going under that 208. Next game up we got is New Orleans and Memphis. And we are going to go under the 206 here. And I need to make a little quick note on this. Both these teams are coming off a back-to-back. Now, Memphis, they're still a good defensive team. They played absolutely terrible yesterday. Miami thumped them. I mean, all their statistics just went crazy because there hasn't been that many games. But still, you're talking about a Memphis team, like yesterday versus Minnesota, they only got up 74 attempts. On the year, they're averaging just 82 attempts. They're still not a fast-paced team. And although New Orleans is, them coming off a back-to-back, I think they're really going to struggle. Memphis should focus on defense last night, considering how well Minnesota lit them up last night. Last year, these teams, they went for 217, 200, 205, and then a 198 game. That was an overtime game. But still, Memphis are still 7th. Excuse me, no, they're not anymore after today. Sorry, they went up. They went up to 16th in effective field goal percentage, so they're not shooting the ball that well. And what else we got here? New Orleans overall, they're 27th in efficiency. So although they're trying to get up tempo. They're not really that good right now, and I don't expect them to score tonight against a Memphis team that should come in with their defensive mindset like they normally have to go ahead and put the clamps down on New Orleans. So I'm going to go under the total of that 206. I want to make a note on that. And as we continue, we got two more plays up here. We got Chicago-Boston. That's going to be one of the better ones of the day. I'm going to go over the 209 and a half. The last matchup we had this year, they were at 204. In that one, Boston only got up 76 attempts. And that's not really them. So far this year in 3 games, they're averaging just 82 attempts. And again, that's not Brad Stevens. Last year, they were 1 and 2 in the league in attempts per game. And we're going to start to see that sort of flow from the Celtics as they start to get into the groove of the season. And we know that because, they're allowing over 89 attempts per game. So, we know they want to get up tempo, and something that could be scary for our Eastern Conference opponents is they're not averaging that many attempts, but they've been really, really efficient. They're number one in effective field goal percentage. And I think with Chicago, who's been going really fast, they're averaging 92 attempts per game. I really think we see it just an up and down and fair tonight from both these teams. Chicago's been scoring like crazy. Last year, we had them at 205, 193, and 211. I think we're going to see more of that last one there, where they're going to get well over this 209 and a half. Also, another point that's really interesting about these two is Chicago, they rank second in the league in assists, while Boston ranks third. So they're going to move the ball and they're going to score. And I think for this, we're going to see a really good scoring game in this one, and just a really good game altogether. Last one up here, we got Dallas versus Utah. I'm going to go under the 188 and a half. I just don't think Utah can score like they did last night versus San Antonio. That was absolutely incredible. They shot 50% from the field and 48% from distance versus the Spurs, who are traditionally, over the last several years, the best defensive team in the league. So that was really surprising. Last season, they had some pretty high totals. They went 195, 193, and then a big overtime game in these two here, the Mavericks and the Jazz, at 240. But Utah, they're still last in attempts per game. Dallas, they're really good at defending, so they've only allowed 81 attempts per game. And then we look more into Dallas. They've averaging in an overtime game as well, 103.7 points per game. That was 2 times against Houston, a fast-paced team, and Indiana, a fast-paced team. Nate McMillan over there with the Pacers. Utah's not going to go fast, and they're not going to be able to shoot the ball as well as they did last night against the Spurs. I just don't see it happening 2 nights in a row. So I'm going to go under the 188 here, and that's SBR across the board. So again, and in case I didn't mention some sports books, let's go ahead and let's break this down one more time. We got Toronto and Washington under the 203 at Heritage Sports, Los Angeles and Atlanta under the 208 at BetOnline, New Orleans and Memphis under 206, that's at Pinnacle Sports, Chicago Boston over the 209.5 at Bookmaker, and Dallas and Utah under the 188. That's SBR across the board. So again, check SBR for the best odds, and still real early in the season. We just started November. It's going to be a great year, and I wish you guys luck on your picks today.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.